This video is to show how to add scripture to the sermon. You need to be on the current week's playlist, which should always be the top one on this list, and then click on sermon. Now what you'll see is the way it will always look after Twyla has entered the service originally early in the week. The sermon bumper video will be there and the title slide will be there. And you can check that it's showing correctly. This is what's in the sanctuary. This is what the people at home see. So the first step is adding the Bible passages using the Bible module. I'm going to use some fictitious scripture for this particular week, but I picked them to show a couple of things that I want to about editing. So what I have here is first scripture is going to be this one, Psalms 80, verse 8. And so you have to select this whole field, and unfortunately, triple click does not work. You can hit the Control A to select it all if you want, and then paste it, and it will show this up. And then the thing to do is say copy to selected presentation. This is going to put it in the sermon because that was the presentation we were on at that time. And now we're going to go get the second one. Copy. Paste that. Hit enter. And uh, and then same thing. Copy to selected presentation. And then we'll do the third one. And copy to selected presentation. So now when we're done, you go back to the show. And now what you'll see is all of the scriptures we added will have been added to the end. So the very easiest thing to do right now is select the first slide and then shift click on the last slide of the scriptures so that they're all selected, and then holding the shift key down, right click, it will give you a choice of these looks, and we always want, in this case, speaker scripture. And so what it will have done is you'll see this little eyeglasses mustache thing, which stands for audience view. And the particular one that it put on everyone is the one called speaker/scripture. So this is the look that is meant for when a speaker is reading the scripture. If you happen to forget this step, which I have done, I will show you an addition at the end of how to handle it if you don't think to do it at this point in time. So the next step is holding the control key down, just drag that to the end. So now what we've got is a beginning and an end. But there is one thing that this one needed that all the rest do not. And so what I'm going to do is I did a right click, edit the slide, and that is because there was instructions to the operator to say advance after sermon closing prayer. And that instruction is necessary in the middle of the sermon. So we're going to take that out and go back. So now this one, the one at the beginning, does not have that special instruction. The one at the end does. So now what we want to do is I'm going to again hold the control key down and drag this title slide to begin between passages. You want to make sure it is really between, so you got a line there. If you happen to be just a little bit into it, it's going to try to do something very odd. You want to be sure the little line is there. So now we have that. That's all one passage. And this is all one passage. We don't need to add another one. We only need to put it in between where it needs to go back to the title slide. Now, what had happened, and it's harder to see on this because there is one of the looks icons, the glasses with the mustache on here, but it's white and it's on a white background. It happens to be the one called speaker/normal. So this is the thing that every time you go from one slide to the next, it's going to make sure the correct look is showing. For instance, for on this one, we move to the next slide, it applies the scripture look, which is this in the sanctuary and this for the people at home. And because of those looks in here, it's going to go back and forth as we walk through here. Now then, I chose those particular passages just to show a couple of things. I have it set to it will always go to a new verse for a new slide, but if any verse happens to be longer than a slide, it of course just overflows. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Reflow Editor, which is the one that's specifically designed for this kind of thing, which is let's move some text around to get the slides the way we want it. This first passage looks fine the way it is, so we don't need to do anything. But the second one, it just automatically divided it when it reached the end of a line. And it just so happened it was a semicolon on this time. So this one probably would be okay. But let's pretend that what we really think would look better is to, at the end of the sentence, have the break to the second slide. So what you can do is, that happens to be right here, and he looked. And so if the cursor is right there and you hit Control Shift and Enter, what it did is it took everything from where your cursor was to the end of that slide and pushed it down to the next slide. So now this is broken up better. It's probably just fine this way, but let's say you really didn't want beginning a new line here. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't really, but for me, for right now, for demonstration purposes, we're going to hit backspace and then a space to make that all one single, this is one sentence, it's all one sentence. Again, you might choose not to do a change like that one. And then the next thing I wanted to show is these two are both fairly short. And because I had the option that said break to a new slide for each verse, it did break it up. But we might decide, well, it's much nicer to just have that all on a single slide. So if you click just before the 23 here and hit backspace, now it moved that slide up, everything on that slide up. Just combine those two slides into one slide, which looks nice now. Of course, if you try that and then you find out it really didn't fit, you can always do a undo. So now we're basically done. I generally go back to the show, go to the beginning, and just step through just to make sure that every change is exactly the way I expected it to be, and every screen in the sanctuary looks the way I expected it to be, which we can see is the case. Now what I'm going to do is pretend that you got this far in your process, that is all the way done, when you realize you forgot to do the scripture look. So when you went to test this, now what would happen is, yes, it looks right in the sanctuary, but it's not going to look right for the people at home. They don't see it. So you could recognize you had a problem if you were reviewing it. So what you can do is, I'm going to hold the control key down, click that slide, all of the scripture slides, so that only those are selected. They're the only ones with the blue. Shift, right click, speaker scripture. Now it applied that look only to those slides. It was a little bit simpler to do it the other way because you just selected them all at once and did this one time, and this takes some extra clicking. But if you've got this far in the process and you need to do that, that's easier. Now you can see that it correctly shows scripture for the people at home.